really funnel this water in there and basically build up the levels along the coast.
So what is this image? Because this is incredible. This is satellite imagery, but taken through the clouds.
Exactly. It's from a company called ICI, microwave imagery that they've done today through the clouds of Grand Bahamas. So where they're scanning down at the ground and seeing where the surface is water and where the surface is land.
So the blue is water, and this is the outline of the island.
Exactly. So, the outline of the island is in yellow. This is just a central portion of the island, and you can see that many of the land areas when this image was taken were inundated, especially if you look across your side of the board, Alex, with just a few sort of drier areas sat on the southern side of the island. So it just shows the impact. Even the airport, as we saw from your initial video, is lying well within the inundated area, so underwater.
That is incredible.
And now this is satellite imagery that shows the eye of the hurricane on a loop, and so you can see at the start of this it moves into the Grand Bahama Island, and then it effectively around this time yesterday it was going at about 1 mile per hour, wasn't it? And then it just stopped. This
whole loop is exceptionally slow for a tropical cyclone to be moving. Even here, it was only moving around about 5 miles per hour, which is the slower end of the spectrum. But once it made it to the eastern part of the island, it slowed to absolute zero. You see in the eye, as this happened, a few things happened that basically means that the storm is going to weaken slightly. So this beautiful defined circular eye becomes a little bit ragged. It starts to develop wobbles at this stage. And this is
it's like a wobbling top. You can imagine just a spinning top, can't you? Just as it starts to kind of, it's incredible.
It is, but some places on either side of this will have experienced the eye wall, which is where the heaviest rain is and the strongest winds, for in excess of 24 hours, which is truly exceptional.
A couple of factors why it's slowed down. And it's because often when storms hit land, that slows them, they lose their source. But that's quite a small island, so that's not all that's going on there, is it?
It's only of the order of sort of 10, 20 miles across Grand Bahama, and it's very low lying, so it's basically friction from land and cutting off the moist, warm seas, which is the fuel for a hurricane, will result in weakening normally when it goes over land. But very limited friction due to there being very little elevation. It's a flat island, and it's still able to source warm, moist seas from all around the island, which keeps it going basically. So only if you're on a small island could you experience a hurricane like this for a protracted amount of time.
But actually then, because it became slow moving, that kind of weakened it because it drew up cooler air, cooler waters.
That's correct. So it acts on the sea around it. That's all, for various reasons, deflected away from the storm, which means the warm surface water is pushed to the periphery of the storm and the cooler water upwells from beneath, and cooler water, the warm water, so the fuel for hurricanes.
It kind of weakened itself a little bit by slowing down.
It's typical of storms that become slow moving. When they're moving quickly, they're constantly moving over new areas of warm water, able to keep growing or maintain their strength. When they slow down, they almost, feedback loop means they weaken themselves in situ via cooling the seas.
We'll talk about the track in a moment, but that is one of the possible dangers as it moves north. It could encounter some warmer water and may intensify again.
That's great. The Gulf Stream runs around the tip of Florida, just on the west here, and this is a tongue of pretty warm water, so there is a chance that there could be, it certainly will remain a major hurricane for the next day or two, weakening eventually as it moves up just offshore is the most likely the Florida coastline, but there is still a chance of some small intensifications as it crosses here. So
it's quite a complicated looking picture, isn't it? I wonder if you can talk us through this.
So it's almost like a slinky. We got this from a chap called Sam Lilo via Twitter. It's really nice. He's used their Archer positioning of the maximum.
What's Archer?
It's a satellite-derived way of working out where the maximum winds in a hurricane are. And it's basically like a slinky. So every time there's a position, he's basically plotted a ring, and it goes through time from the yellows of the older orbs to the latest ones. And you can see initially the storm was moving, so although there were overlapping lines, it was still going at a bit. But you see these last ones, since say Monday into Tuesday, virtually all the slinkies are in the same area. It was just emphasising how slow moving this storm is.
What this is showing is that these central parts in particular have had 24 hours worth or thereabouts of the strongest winds.
Exactly.
Which is really unusual.
It's really unusual.
And that's almost like a tornado has come to a halt, isn't it? It's that power of the wind.
That's the actual sustained winds, I think around 185 miles an hour when it made landfall initially across the island just east of here, the equivalent of an EF3 tornado, but being sustained for many hours is quite unusual.
Yeah,
it's incredible graphic.
And initially, Dorian, of course, was moving along, wasn't it?
A quick history of it. It started down in the Atlantic, crossed the Lesser Antilles, British Virgin Islands. That was around about last Wednesday where it became a hurricane. It just trundled along northeast, was not affecting any land, and it was just basically on approach to the Bahamas They intensified rapidly and became a Cat 5 and then has slowed down. And I just put this graphic on there. Orange is where the tropical storm wind field has been in the past and is currently. Red where the hurricane force wind fields are. So although the storm's weakening in terms of its maximum intensity on the eye wall, you can see that in recent times its tropical storm wind field is expanding and its hurricane force wind field as well has been expanding. So although the absolute intensity has reduced, the actual area of hurricane force and tropical storm force winds is still.
And they're now encountering that in parts of Florida. And that's, although it's not expected to make landfall now in Florida, it's still going to bring hurricane force winds and a huge swell along that east coast of Florida.
Exactly. The NHC, which are the go-to people for the latest up-to-date guidance on this, have hurricane warnings and watches in place for portions of Florida moving northwards.
Well, let's have a look at that. Let's have a look at the forecast. Let me just bring up.
I should have said, actually, send us your questions. You should have said that right at the start. Do send your questions in. I'll just check to see if we've had any coming in. Oh yeah, lots coming in already, particularly for Nick while Nick's on, because he really is an expert in this field. So if you've got any, Anne-Marie, YouTube straight away, will Dorian come our way? We'll have more on the track of Dorian in just a moment. The latest thoughts are it's going to go well to the north of the UK, maybe up towards Iceland, but it won't be a hurricane by that stage. I said we'll have more on that in a moment. So that's a lot of the questions coming in. What are the new names for the storms? Laser Capri on YouTube. Yeah, we'll have more on those also later on, so keep watching. Yes, and again, David Pott on YouTube asking the same questions about the UK storm names. So we'll have more on that in a moment.
We've been asked to just do a quick recap of the first few minutes because I think with that time wasn't broadcast. So, of course, we're talking about the devastating Hurricane Dorian, a Category 5 hurricane when it hit the Bahamas and essentially stalled over the Bahamas as a Category 5, going down to Category 4 and Category 3. And in a moment, I'll just do a recap of some of the incredible videos that we've seen coming out of the Bahamas. But let's talk about where Dorian is heading next and why exactly did it slow down. So this is the current, more or less, position of Dorian. The clock on the side there, that's the local time, Tuesday morning. Nick, it was moving west because of some upper level winds, wasn't it?
That's it. So hurricanes are almost like a cork in the stream. Although they've got a lot with them and a lot of energy confined in a small area, they're in general steered by the weak currents that surround the tropical atmosphere. So Dorian was being steered in a westwards direction by what we call a strong sort of subtropical upper ridge, or basically an area of high pressure in the upper atmosphere just to the north of the storm. Winds circulate around the high in a clockwise direction in the northern hemisphere.
Draw that. So in theory, let's draw this on. So there was a high pressure, a bit like this.
That's
high up in the atmosphere, and the winds circulating around that would effectively, we thought, or Dorian was expected to then track basically across Florida like that.
Exactly, it was expected to be steered. This is probably of the order of sort of 5 or 6 days ago when the storm was quicker. This ridge was supposed to remain intact, and as a result, the storm was supposed to have crossed southern Florida. But it didn't quite happen. The storm slowed down, which allowed a few other things to happen.
So let's look at that. So the storm itself then slowed down,
yes,
which allowed that high pressure to weaken.
That's correct. So we had almost like things that influence our own weather, what we call an upper trough in the polar front jet stream or across North America, has run down, and it has basically split this upper high into two areas, one across around about Bermuda and another one in the Gulf of Mexico. That's basically produced very weak and contradictory steering currents that allowed Dorian to slow and almost become stationary across the Bahamas, but now provides the opportunity, a hurricane in the absence of steering flow due to various effects of how the Earth rotates, will try and move westwards, but also will try and move northwards with time to gain latitude.
So it's effectively just created a little gap here, and that now is effectively
exactly
the track that we're expecting over the next few days.
Exactly. It's able to gain latitude for this gap and run parallel to the coast of Florida, and thereafter it will experience the flow of the sort of the mid-latitude jet stream as we experience, recurve to the northeast and head out into the
become extratropical.
It becomes extratropical, yes.
What does that mean? Explain that what does that mean?
So a tropical storm, it's a very different beast. It's what we call warm chord. So it's maximum wind speeds in the lowest regions of the atmosphere. It weakens as you go aloft, the winds become lighter and lighter, and it's what we call symmetrical. You know, you see these beautiful satellite images we saw earlier with a beautiful distinct eye and the storm radiating in all directions. When it becomes extratropical, it basically loses that. First thing is it probably loses its 26 degrees sea surface temperatures, which is the sort of critical threshold for maintaining and forming a tropical storm, which it will as it runs northwards eventually. And it will, as it encounters the mid-latitude westerlies, wind shear will break the system apart. And then it becomes almost like you see a subtropical system where the jet stream and the strongest winds are at very high levels in it, and the storm is actually generally weaker the nearer to the surface you go. So it loses its symmetry. It becomes basically sort of a instability of cold air meeting warm air, and that becomes the mechanism rather than just one big warm.
Loses the source heat from underneath it, and that's one of the reasons why we don't get proper hurricanes across the UK, because the sea surface temperatures around our islands just don't support them.
Yeah, you can see here as it's going extratropical, it's almost starting to form itself sorry, it's almost starting to form itself, a cold, warm front and occluded type portion, and look more like an extratropical cycle at stage. And if you were to look at the jets, I don't know if you've got it on there.
Not on this map, but we can put it on another one.
It's all right. The jet stream would be running basically across the southeastern portion of the storm. Yeah.
Now let's just summarise the expected track over the next few days. So this is the official track from the National Hurricane Centre, isn't it?
That's it. They're updated every 3 hours. They go to source for the latest, most up-to-date information, and these are the things to look at and act upon if you live or have any interest in.
Yeah. If you Google, so it's NHC, isn't it? NHC hurricanes, then that's the source of all information for the very latest official track.
Brilliant. So the official track is the most probable is these various M's. And
what's this? So M is major hurricane?
Major hurricane, yeah, category 3 and stronger. Hurricane is category 1 to 2. And then as it becomes extratropical, the symbols go from black, you see, to a little white H up there. And it's not just the exact track. This cone of uncertainty around it shows the potential spread in solution. So now we're pretty happy you see the cone doesn't any longer intercept. So the centre of the storm's not expected to go across the Floridan coastline now. But we looked at that wind field graphic earlier, tropical storm and hurricane winds, which extend out from the centre, which is why this red area here is indicative of a hurricane warning, which is in force for portions of the Florida Atlantic coastline.
And there could potentially, he's going to get close he's going to get close to the North Carolina coast. There's a possible landfall there as well.
That's correct. As it moves up near Wilmington, and I forget the cape's name, just on the eastern point of North Carolina, there is a chance of very close to a landfall there, but as a much weakened system by this time. And I should note, although it's going to be weak, often weaker, certainly weaker than a Cat 5 during this whole period, this coastline is quite low lying. The shape of it and the track of the storm means that it does still have the potential to build up a significant storm surge. So, even without the worst of the winds, I think flooding is going to be problematic across low-lying parts of eastern Florida, Georgia and the Carolinas as it makes its way northwards, and that will probably be the principal hazard on the upcoming days.
Absolutely fascinating, Nick. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Keeping a very close eye on it, of course. And,
no problem.
Yeah, thank you, Nick.
Thanks for your time.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Nick. I'll let you get back to me. You've been very, very busy indeed. Yes, thanks for that. Thank you for sending in your questions. Sorry if you did miss the first few minutes of the show. We'll try and have a quick recap. I'll go through some questions now. Is there lightning in a hurricane? Yes, there very much is. Lightning storms, you can get tornadoes within them, although often the winds are moving so quickly that tornadoes just get blown apart, so they don't get a chance to form, but you can get them within. Why, with our storms, did we carry on from where we were in the last two? Well, because we have a new one every year. Tristan Knights on Facebook asking about why don't we carry on the same list? Because to be consistent, actually, with what happens in America, they have a new season, a new list every year, and we do that as well to start back at A. Why is the wind speed in the eye of a hurricane almost zero, and what causes the eye to form? Well, this is the very centre of it, and it's not far from the wall that you get. It's quite a contrast between the wall where the strongest winds are and right in the centre where the winds can be completely still because they're not going around anywhere.
In any pressure system, in the centre of a high or the centre of a low. And the incredible thing about Dorian was that some places were in the eye, so blue skies, light winds for hours on end, and that poses itself a risk because people would likely venture out thinking it's all over, and then it all comes back in again. Now, if you missed the first few minutes, we were showing some of the incredible imagery that has come out of the Bahamas. This one here, I'll get onto it. This is Grand Bahama Airport. It no longer looks like an airport. The sea has effectively reclaimed the land. So devastating storm surge there. The airport, I think, is only a few feet higher than the sea level. So with a storm surge that was predicted at 18 to 23 feet, then large parts of this Grand Bahama Island ended up underwater, ended up essentially back in the sea. Here's another video showing that incredible storm surge, people's houses here underwater, and that's someone's roof, isn't it?
Yeah, some people sheltering in their loft. You can see the loft insulation and you can see the waves. Just imagine having first place, having to go into your loft to shelter and then actually just seeing the waves come in like that. I mean, just absolutely terrifying.
And I don't know if
terrifying.
I don't know if people caught this, but this is a satellite image of the Grand Bahama Island, but using microwave technology to see through the clouds. And so what you're seeing here, these areas are land, the outline is marked, but this area here is the sea. So the sea has come in and covered, what looks like
a significant
half the island.
the northern half of the island, because the storm's mostly been here and the winds are going around it like that and drawing in with that storm surge as well. I mean, just incredible. And the seas are only going to get worse, really, I think, as communication improves from the islands. Just one really quick question that I saw about, will we have to go up to a category, will we have to increase the categories for storms? And interesting, actually, we've been talking a bit about climate change this morning with expert Julian Hemming, and there's no hard evidence to suggest, there's no about the number of hurricanes changing with climate change, but most of the models predict that we're more likely to get more severe hurricanes, but actually the total number of hurricanes may not change with climate change. Obviously the globe is warming, the sea is warming as well, and the warm sea is one of the main fuels for hurricanes. So you'd think naturally, we're going to get more, but actually a lot of the evidence suggests that there's not an increase in the number of hurricanes, but most of the models are predicting that we will get more severe hurricanes. But because we haven't had that many, there's not enough statistical evidence so far to actually back that up. So it's a really interesting area of ongoing research.
It might take decades before you see a trend, because hurricane activity is so highly variable every year and so dependent on other things such as the El Nino oscillation.
Yes, so there was another question here actually about that, saying if hurricane season started in June, why are we only getting our first ones now? And you say the season really does vary year on year. El Nino is a bigger factor. The wind shear in that area, that was a big factor in 2017 when we had so many storms, is that the wind shear was just so light in that part of the world that the storms were able to form, and more of them just form. The wind shear is actually the winds changing through the atmosphere, and if it's strong wind shear, the storms get blown apart before they can form. But 2017, the wind shear was particularly light, and that's why we had so many.
And up until just over a week ago, the wind shear was one of the main reasons why we had a very quiet season. Up until Dorian, very quiet season, the wind shear. Then that wind shear relaxed, and all of a sudden you had Dorian coming through, taking advantage of the warmer than average seas in that area.
Nikki Clark, YouTube. I'm off to Manchester on Friday for a conference on Saturday. What's the weather going to be like? Let's bring it back a little bit towards the UK, shall we? We'll have a UK forecast in a moment. But Nikki, it doesn't look too bad at the weekend in Manchester. Could be some showers around on Friday. There's a test match going on in Manchester as well. Could be some interruptions on Friday for that. But actually, high pressure's edging in for the UK, and many places look like, at the moment, look like having a dry weekend. But we'll have more on that in a moment. Let's look a bit back at summer, shall we?
I know a lot of people's perceptions of the summer have been that it's been very disappointing, wet. Obviously, that's one of the main themes. Everyone seems to think it's been a wet summer, and as a result, it's been cool, right? But of course, we did have the UK's all-time highest temperature. We had a number of heat waves, typically at the end of each of the 3 months.
It sounded like we had one each month, didn't we?
Yeah.
At the end of each month, one at the end of June, one at the end of July, and one
But we
sort of
did have
mid to late
spells
August.
of unsettled weather. So overall, it's interesting to hear about people's perception of the summer. And so, actually, I'm on the wrong thing there. Talk amongst
But you've got,
yourselves while
I'm going to build you up now, because you've got some amazing stats about this summer. You'll be able to amaze your friends with these couple of stats that you've been very excited about for a couple of weeks now about this summer. And of course, meteorologically, climatologically, summer is June, July, and August. Let's just be clear. Some people, we're not pushing it on you. Your summer can start whenever you want. But for us, meteorologists, summer is June, July, and August. So summer is over now. We're into autumn.
Yeah, and of course, if you think it's been a wet summer, then you were right. It has been a wet summer, well above average rainfall. This map here shows the distribution of the rainfall anomaly. So the darker blues are those areas where we saw much wetter than normal weather, up to 170% of average.
Drier across parts of East Anglia, though.
Yeah, dry.
And Somerset.
Around average or slightly below across southern parts of the country. It varied place to place significantly, but also month to month. Let's put on the month to month differences. So June was
June, July, August.
Yeah, June very wet through the Midlands, North East England, southern counties of England. Not so much for Scotland. Average rainfall there. By July, it was the south where we saw a lot of dry weather, and actually I remember it being pretty decent weather in the south from the end of June until the beginning of August. Then August, we saw very wet weather across Scotland, so the rainfall patterns tended to shift north through the summer, following a very unsettled start to southern Britain. So yeah, it's been a wet summer. A lot of people will assume that it's been a cool summer, not a particularly warm one.
But they'd be wrong, would they, Aidan? Would they be wrong by any chance?
Unless they lived actually nowhere.
Nowhere's had a cooler than average. Some places have been very close to average, but yeah. So this is showing the temperature anomaly compared to the climate over 30 years, and most places, I mean, compared to last summer, this map was red, scarlet last summer, wasn't it? So compared to last summer, yes, it has been quite a bit cooler, but compared to average, it's around 1 degree, generally above average. Some places a little bit warmer.
Just under 1 degree for the whole of the UK, above average. Now, you don't get cool weather every time it rains in the summer, but typically wet summers aren't as hot.
No,
right?
I'm excited about this stat that's coming up. I know you are as well. Whoa, what's this?
Check this out.
Whoa!
Right. This is a graph that plots all of the summers since 1884. And on the bottom here, we've got temperature, average temperature for that summer, going up as you go along to the right there. And then you've got rainfall on the y-axis going, or the x-axis going... Y-axis going up.
Too excited. Right, so this is a plot of all the summers comparing how warm it's been to how wet it's been.
Yeah. And the
2019 is up there.
That's 2019, and what it shows is it's been warm and wet, as we were just talking about. But what's interesting about this, okay, is that when you look at every single summer that was warmer than the summer just been, they were all significantly drier. So they all had less than 200 mils of rain, which is significantly below average, significantly drier than this summer, which means that this summer has effectively been the warmest, wetter than average summer on record.
Remember that. Tell your friends down the pub tonight. The warmest, wetter than average summer on record.
If you get it mixed up and say it was the wettest, warmer than average summer on record, you're also right, because it has been the wettest, warmer than average summer. The average temperature is about here, where you've got 2008 there. That was about average for temperature. And you see all these summers were above average, and 2019 there towards the top of the graph, which means it was the wettest, warmer than average summer.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's actually quite an outlier. Mark McCarthy, Dr. Mark McCarthy, we should thank him for this graph as well. He's the stats guy. We've had him on before. We probably would have had him in today, but we had Nick talking about Dorian as well. So big thanks to Mark. And actually, the morning meeting we had this morning says, in many ways, this summer was more remarkable than last summer because it's such an outlier. It is really unusual to have these two factors.
If you take summers that have similar amounts of rainfall in recent times and compare them to, say, around 100 years ago, a really important comparison here. 2012 was the second wettest summer on record. 1912 was the first wettest. The top two there, wettest summers on record. 100 years apart, 2012 is shifted that way. And what you find when you take these summers, the more recent ones are all shifted that way, whether they are dry or whether they are wet.
So if you go along a line there, you tend to find that the later years are all down this because it's warm, because the atmosphere is warmer.
There's a cluster there many people remember the wet summers that we had recently, 2008, 2009, 2004. There's a cluster of recent wet summers, but they're also along this side of the graph, which means they were relatively warm. So there you go.
That was good, actually. It was actually, it is quite fascinating, actually. So it was good. Good stats. You're going to amaze your friends tonight down the pub with it was the warmest, wetter than average summer on record, and vice versa.
And vice versa.
And tell people to watch this back if they don't believe you. Right, should we do some weather? What's the forecast looking like for the next few days? And the big question, is Dorian going to be affecting the UK?
Yeah. Kind of is the answer to that, and typical September weather is the answer to both of those, I guess. Dorian, not something that we really need to worry about, but it will.
It's not on our radar yet. See what it is there. You don't want that on there, do you?
No, I don't want that on there. Okay, so at the moment we've got low pressure. For Tuesday afternoon, we've got low pressure sitting to the northwest of the UK, and essentially over the next few days, weather fronts will cross the country and they'll bring some rain, some showers, and we'll have often high pressure to the west of the UK and a northwesterly airflow. So typical early September weather, not too hot, not too cold.
Cold front swings too, so it's going to feel a bit fresher. It's actually got a bit warmer today out there, 23 degrees possibly in the southeast, but it's going to turn cooler as the cooler air sinking southwards, and then there's another push of cooler air into the weekend. I'm going camping at the weekend, and I'm a bit worried it might be a bit chilly. But it does look like high pressure's moving in for the weekend as well, so it should be largely dry.
It does. Let's head towards the weekend there, and you can see there another couple of weather fronts crossing northern parts of the country for Thursday and Friday. A few showers around on Thursday. And
this front will bring some showery rain south on Friday, and again the isobars squeezing together. The wind's actually picking. I haven't seen strong winds for a while. There'll be some tomorrow afternoon, and then again on Friday. But then the high pressure edges in, so it looks cool and largely dry. Is the best way to sum up the weekend at this stage. But
there's the cool air. There's the high pressure ridging in. Some cloudy skies, a few showers, but otherwise largely benign. Now by this stage, that's where Dorian is. So let's move him forward.
This is, as we talked about earlier with Nick, going through transition somewhere around here, no longer a hurricane, becoming an ex-tropical storm, heading up towards eastern parts. So you can still see a lot of isobars on the chart. It's going to be very windy in Nova Scotia as it approaches. And then, as is often the case, it will get drawn into the jet stream and could head across the Atlantic.
That's right. And for the start of next week, it looks most likely that
this is it here.
That's our drawing tool. There it is there. But for the start of next week, it looks most likely.
You want to draw? You want to draw, don't you?
There it
you
is.
dropped your pen.
Find my pen.
I'll have a pen.
There we go. Let's change the colour.
It's most likely to head up towards Iceland.
Head up towards Iceland. What does that mean? Essentially, you'll have an area of. Whoop, that's a bit big. An area of low pressure here. And a fairly brisk breeze coming in from the west, some showers, mainly to the northwest of the UK, some outbreaks of rain there, breezier conditions, but nothing more exciting than a typical area of low pressure that we often get.
Often these storms do bring some warmer, really can trap warmer air. Obviously, it's very warm air. It's got, and sometimes they bring, but actually that tends to. It looks like with this system that's getting moved or it's getting squeezed out of it. So it's even not going to bring that particularly warm air up as it approaches the UK. So yes, we'll have more on this in the 10-day trend tomorrow as well. Of course, you'll be looking at that, the origins of it, and then the progress. Obviously, there's still some uncertainty because it's a very slow-moving system. There's a bit of uncertainty across the US, and we're talking about a week ahead. But most of the computer models now track that up towards Iceland. So yeah, just like to bring us a few showers at some point through the middle part of next week.
So yeah, not a great deal to talk about with the UK weather, just typical early autumn stuff. The major news story, of course, all about Dorian, but we are now into the autumn, so the UK storm season, if you like.
Yes, and we do have a big reveal, exclusive news coming your way any second now. So we're going to reveal all the storm names on Friday. You'll get to see the full list, A to Z, barring the ones that we don't use, of course. Lots more information about this on the Met Office website, why we name UK storms. We've been in partnership with Met Éireann for a number of years now here at the UK Met Office and Met Éireann. We put out a request for names earlier this year, so if you suggested a name, tune in on Friday, see if your name has been taken. We're also this year for the first time in partnership with the Dutch, so the Royal Netherlands Meteorological Institute. They have also suggested a few names. We've got a couple of them there as well. So it's an interesting list of names. As I say, the full list will be revealed on Friday. Met Aaron are running a poll for L. So if you follow Met Aaron on Twitter, go there, then they're running a poll, so you can influence the L letter today. I think that's on. So I'm not sure if it's up yet, but they are running a poll today for the letter L. All the others have been decided. And
a bit of fun if you were Welsh, couldn't you? Double L. Llewellyn.
Is that a boy's name or a girl's name?
In Welsh, of course, it's a different letter. So.
Is it?
Does it count?
I don't know. Oh, you're introducing all kinds of complicated things. But yes, the full list will be revealed on Friday, but we can now reveal
the F name.
One of the letters. Yes, we are going to reveal it right now. Press the button. Press the button. F is for Francis. F will be Francis if we get that far this year. Frank for short, is it? That name has been chosen by the Royal Netherlands Meteorological Institute. They chose that one. They suggested that. Do you know why they suggested it? Do you know which famous Francis it's named after, or why they suggested it?
No.
Francis Wilson, you may think, but no, it's not. It's not Francis Wilson. Although I kind of wish it was. Francis Beaufort. The guy who invented the wind scale. I
was going to say Beaufort.
Yeah,
then
Francis
last
Beaufort.
minute doubt, I thought, what's his first name?
Yes.
Am I going to look silly?
Francis Beaufort, and that's why we've got F. So
good choice.
If we get a very good choice, very good choice, yes.
Yeah.
But the rest of the names will be revealed on Friday, so make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you're following us on social media for that. The names will be all over Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, the usual places to go. Yeah, that's Friday. Exciting times. Thank you very much for watching today, and yes, keep up to date with the very latest from the Met Office, National Hurricane Centre. We had a lot of questions in about people worried about people in Florida as well. So the National Hurricane Centre is the official website to go to for more on that. And yeah, we'll have maybe more on the storm names next week when we'll have the full list.
Great.
If you've enjoyed this, tell your friends, watch it back, share it with people, give us the thumbs up. But thank you very much for watching, and we'll
subscribe.
Subscribe on YouTube.
If you're not, you might be watching this on Twitter or on Facebook. But yeah, subscribe on YouTube, and you won't miss a thing. Click the bell button, get some notifications.
Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week.
Bye.